another room down the hall. And when it came time for my patient to deliver, I asked for someone to get the nursing assistants for me. And the nurse taking care of the aborted baby and the aborting mom said to me, "They're too busy to help you right now." And I said, "Well, what are they doing?" And she said, "They're wrapping my baby to take to the morgue." My baby. And I thought how crazy it is that there's no one to help me with my full-term delivery, only because they're busy wrapping a baby that they caused to die to take to the morgue. And sure enough, later on, as I was running back and forth getting things that I needed, I happened to glance down the hall at just the right time, and I saw those two nursing assistants carrying that formerly sickly, now dead baby to the morgue. I've been further shocked at the depths that some people will go to, people who call themselves Christians, to protect and defend abortion. In December of 2000, Christ Hospital unveiled its comfort room. So no longer did nurses take babies to the soiled utility room to die, they now took them to the comfort room. This was a small, nicely decorated room, complete with a first photo machine in case parents wanted professional pictures taken of their aborted babies. Baptismal supplies in case they wanted their aborted babies baptized. And a foot printer and baby bracelets in case they wanted keepsakes of their aborted babies. You may not think that what I'm telling you could possibly be true, but I took pictures of that comfort room and I had them entered in a congressional testimony. And you can actually Google Christ Hospital Comfort Room and they'll pop up. And Father Pavone made a brochure of my experience and he put pictures of the comfort room in there too. And I've got as many brochures as you'd like out there at the table after the event. Actually, taking these pictures is one of the ways I got myself fired not too long after that. Christ Hospital wanted me to quit long before they fired me, but I wouldn't leave. During those 2 years that went by before I was fired, I was placed on a 1-year-long final warning twice. So I was on final warning the whole time. I had my picture cut up. I received anonymous hate mail. One time I was suspended, although my suspension was remarkably lifted after just 21 hours when the news broadcasters got a hold of the story. One time the hospital CEO publicly posted a letter about me in the department in several places with my name highlighted in pink and circled. But St. Paul reminds us that the battle really isn't here on earth. It's a battle in the spiritual world around us. And so I do not take anything that was done to me personally. And I also know that I'm on the winning side. The healthcare system that I worked for is one of the 10 largest healthcare systems in the United States. But I happen to know that 1 plus God equals the majority. I happen to know that I have nothing on earth to fear. And God, in fact, God says in Isaiah, "I, the Lord, have called you to do what is right. Don't be afraid, I'm with you. Don't be intimidated, I am your God. And I will uphold you with my victorious right hand." But I do have to admit that life at work became more and more difficult as time went on, as you might imagine. I began to feel like I was leading the life of a double agent, flying off to Washington, D.C. 1 minute to testify, and the next minute being so close to abortion that I almost couldn't stand it. And that final night, as I walked through the main doors of the hospital to work, and underneath the mission statement of the hospital that said, in part, all human beings are created in the image of God. So the hospital knew exactly who it was aborting. It had no excuses. I became sick to my stomach and I said, "Oh God, how long are you going to make me do this?" Well, it turned out God's answer was, "Not that much longer, Jill." This was August 31st, 2001. And when I went in to punch in at the time clock, there was my boss waiting for me. which is an ominous sign when your boss is waiting for you at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. And sure enough, I was terminated and I was escorted out of the hospital with security guards. It was all very exciting. And my termination even made the New York Times, just what I want to be famous for, getting fired. Well, what Christ Hospital did was blindside me that it was involved in the most despicable moral issue of our generation. And then the hospital told me that it wanted me to walk away from it. Well, I couldn't because I answered to a bigger boss. And I submit this just isn't the most despicable moral issue of our time. I think this is the worst atrocity committed against humans out of all of history. The Alan Guttmacher Institute, which is Planned Parenthood's research arm, says that just in the past 20 years, almost 1 billion babies have been killed worldwide by abortion. You know, we in the U.S. get distraught because we've had 53 million killed, but we're just a small piece of the pie. 1 billion people have been killed. 1/6 of the world population has been killed just in the last 2 decades. You know, you name for me one other plague, one other war, one other tsunami, one other Holocaust, one other earthquake that can possibly match that, and I don't think you can. I think we are treating human beings worse right now than we ever have. And what are we doing about it? People will come up to me and they'll say to me, Jill, I don't think that I could do what you did. And that makes me very sad. Makes me sad that I even stand out at all. Because I think, do you not worship the same God that I do? The God who parted the Red Sea. Do you not believe the promises that the Bible makes to take care of us if we're faithful to Him? One of the promises that the Bible makes in Psalm 25:3 is, no one who waits for God will ever be put to shame. I banked on that. And in my case, God came through pretty quick. August 5th, 2002. A couple days before that, I got a call from the White House. And it actually shows up on your caller ID, White House. And they said President George W. Bush was signing the Born Alive Infants Protection Act into law, and would I like to be present at the signing ceremony? And I said, well, of course, and I was honored to attend. Now, you may think that these abortions have ended, but they have not. There were no penalties attached to the Born Alive Act. There was no, if you do this, this will happen. And so President Bush had a hard time trying to find a hook to hang this law on. And then, of course, you know, he left office in 2008. Barack Obama came in. And I don't think that there's any chance whatsoever during the next 2 years, at least through this first 4 years of his presidency, hopefully last, that we can see the Born Alive Act being enforced. And every now and then you'll hear of incidences popping up in the U.S. of babies being aborted alive and allowed to die. All that said, I do think that a corner has been turned on abortion. We've got strongholds like this in the world. Ireland, you know, that I know that you have a tough fight, but you're standing strong, and an encouragement to the rest of us. I really had a hard time when I realized today where I was at. I really had a hard time fathoming, and I talked to Liam about this, of not having abortion be legal here. So the day is coming when pro-lifers will outnumber pro-aborts, because you see, while pro-aborts continue to abort their babies, pro-lifers continue to have our babies. So it's just a matter of time before we win the war by attrition alone. But we must fight on, and each and every one of us is critical to the battle. You've got your fight here, the abortion-free stronghold, and we've got our fight in the U.S. trying to take back turf that the other side is taken. But every one of us is critical to the battle. I received very good advice from Mark Crutcher of Life Dynamics early on when I first started. He said to me, Jill, do not rely on the media. Do not rely on legislators. Do not even rely on your church. You just rely on God. And Mark was right. If I relied on the media, I would almost always be disappointed. The UK media is much better on this issue than the American media is. If I relied on legislators, I would almost always be disappointed. And I'm sad to say that members of my own church have disappointed me. But God will never disappoint us. God takes one willing servant and makes the most out of that opportunity. We have the honor of being God's voice, His hands and feet. What an honor. He doesn't have to do that. He could make the rocks cry out, the Bible says. But He doesn't. And the thing is, no one can replace the voice, the hands and the feet that you own where you're sitting tonight. How did it come to be? Here we are at a conference in Ireland. You have a nurse talking to you about aborting babies alive at a hospital named Christ. How did we get to this point in the world? I don't think it's so different than it was 2,000 years ago when there was another innocent man being put to death. There was that segment of the crowd that wanted him killed. He was getting in their way. He was inconvenient. Standing in the way of them making money, them having power, their life dreams. And then there was that segment of the crowd that said, he's an innocent man. What are you doing? He hasn't done anything wrong. And then there was Pontius Pilate. And Pontius Pilate said, I don't really like what you have in mind, but I don't want to interfere with your right to choose. And he backed away. And that's what we're dealing with today around the world. That was one Pontius Pilate. And today we're dealing with millions and millions of Pontius Pilates that we have to convert to our way of thinking. And I so thank Youth Defense for the work that you're doing to help persuade that culture of death and those people sitting on the fence to our way of thinking. I'm so grateful for the stronghold here. I encourage you to keep it up. Thank you very much.